Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Communities Live here on Sheffield Live 93.2 FM. Now we have CEO Emily Wilson Smith and we also have Kelly Greenaway. So, good afternoon.
Hi,
Afternoon.
afternoon.
Now, I've been reading a report about girls not getting free period products, and it's really staggeringly high. What can we do to change that?
So I think as a country, we've really come a long way in terms of, excuse me, tackling period inequality. But the truth is still learners are still missing far too much school because they aren't able to access period products. Now we know from our independent research, excuse me, the PHS Commission today shows that learners are missing on average around 3 days per term because of their periods. But there's also lots of very good government schemes out there. We know in England, for example, 99% of secondary schools have ordered free period products from the period product scheme since the launch in 2020. But we also know from the research that those products are getting into the schools, but often not getting into the hands of people who actually need them. And this could be for various reasons. Period products are locked away in a cupboard, a storeroom, or behind receptions, and learners are simply too embarrassed to ask for them.
I've got to ask, what can schools, you say that they are getting the products, but what can schools do to make girls more aware that there are products and to help them when they during their periods?
So I think now the job is to kind of make sure that we close the gap between getting the products into the hands of learners that need them. So we need to get the products into the washrooms and cubicle spaces so they're easily accessible to anyone that needs them. And we need to address the shame and stigma and embarrassment that still exists. So learners or anyone that menstruates really aren't afraid to have open conversations around their periods. There's lots that we could do in terms of, like I said, having those open conversations, the teachers asking learners about, what they want, how do they want to access the products, but also the teachers being able to access lots of kind of, materials that are out there. For example, we've launched a podcast, a blogcast today. So being able to give, that information to teachers to inform and educate and, remove the stigma around periods, I think is probably the right thing to do.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about this podcast? What's it called and how can people access it?
Yep. So the intention of the podcast is to inform, engage, and educate basically anyone who's on periods. It's not just for learners, just so they can have open conversations. So it covers lots of topics such as shame, costs, stigma, pain, and the basics that you need to know about your periods. And it comes with lots of useful resources as well. For example, an education booklet that teachers can use during their lessons to help with those open conversations. And in terms of getting the podcast, all you need to do is stream the podcast by searching the Blobcast Free Your Period on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube.
You mentioned that most girls miss school because of the periods, and teachers, parents, and girls all together. What can they do to kind of prevent it?
So I think it's about teamwork and schools working together with government to make use of these schemes, but also with parents to kind of really break down that stigma and have conversations about periods. And that's why this podcast is such a great idea, because I think what we've found as a charity and working with young people is that actually all the right support is there. You've got the pads in school, we've got the a real willingness to address this, but actually that shame really gets in the way. And so actually having those conversations, making sure that everybody knows that this support is available and that people should be accessing it and can access it, that's what's going to make the difference and really get this working for everybody. And if it does work, if we can keep girls in school during their period, that could have a really massive impact right now on their mental health, their confidence, and it could really be fantastic. So it's about that teamwork, and I hope this podcast will help catalyze that teamwork.
I've got to ask, for anybody that doesn't have access to any internet, is there any information that they can get physically?
Yeah, there's lots of downloadable materials. So in terms of schools, there's lots of resources available on our website that people can download, and there's lots of guidance out there as well. But I think the most important thing is to have those open conversations. Have a chat to your teacher, have a chat to teacher in terms of what the best way is to access the products. Have a chat with your teacher. If you're feeling like you need to talk more openly about periods and that type of thing. So if you haven't got access to anything digital or online, then I would say the most important thing really is to talk and have those really honest and open and confident conversations about your period. A period is a natural bodily function. We're in 2020 and we really need to get more comfortable about talking about it.
I mean, it's one of the most popular issues for women. I mean, and still needs to be more awareness. So, how can the public and also teachers and schools and colleges raise more awareness for girls?
We'll definitely talk more. I think both Emily and I have said the importance of talking more and having those open conversations. But also, use the resources and the guidance that's available. There's lots of guidance out there. There's lots of resources as well that we've helped develop with the LETs. There's lots of lesson plans. We've got the podcast. I've mentioned the podcast covers lots of different topics that would be useful, but also lots of downloadable materials as well that teachers can use during their lessons and that type of thing.
And I think we have to really listen to young people as well. So I think one of the things that the Department for Education has done recently is hold roundtables for young people and schools and get feedback on how the period product scheme's working in England. And that's the kind of thing we need to see. These listening to young people, taking on board their feedback, making improvements. And just this month, the Department for Education has released new guidance for schools using these schemes. It's much better. It's full of tips and advice directly from the young people who are trying to get support in schools. So I think we'd like to see schools doing more of that, that cycle of feedback. Actually, how's it going for you as a young person? What can we do? What can we change? How can we improve? Because it's that's going to really, break the stigma and get these things working on the ground. So anything that is, I think, let's just listen and listen hard to these kind of girls that are out of school on their period and find out what it is they need to be in class.
My final question, because we are shortly running out of time. So, my last question to both Emily and Kelly is, what would you like to say to our audience who is listening to this interview?
Do you want to go first, Emily?
Well, I think we've talked, this podcast is all about conversation, and I think anyone can talk about periods. It's not just for women, it's not just for girls, it's not just for young people. Everyone can talk about periods. It affects all our lives. It affects people we love and care about. So talk about it, ask, and be willing to kind of help out, whether it's your daughter, your partner, your friend. Be a source of support, because that's how we end this. That's how we end period shame. That's how we end this inequality.
Yep, definitely. It's about having those open conversations, making sure that products are accessible to girls, but also using the guidance and the learning resources are available as well to help implement the period equality piece.
Emily, Kelly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much.